Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to House Talk. I am your host, Dr. Lauren D. Pitts. Ladies, listeners of all ages, Black women make essential contributions to the productivity, wealth, and success of the nation. For many years, Black women have supported their families and served as leaders in their communities and society at large. And tonight, I'm joined by three amazing women who are doing just that. My two remarkable guest hosts tonight, Regina Williams and Dr. Jacqueline Thompson, are doing great work in their communities. Regina, welcome back to House Talk, and Dr. J is joining House Talk tonight for the first time. Welcome. Additionally,
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Additionally, I am truly honored to be joined tonight by expert relationship therapist, my former clinical director, mentor, colleague, and my shiro, Dr. R.G. Allen Wilson. Dr. Wilson, welcome to House Talk.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. You're my shiro. We lifting each other up together. That's what we got to do as Black women.
Yes.
Yes. I'm excited to be back. I'm getting a little feedback, so I might have to change a little, do something here because I'm getting some feedback.
That's all right. That's all right. We'll make the necessary adjustments. The bios of these heavy hitters are available on each of our social media platforms and the slideshow running during the show. So you're definitely going to want to take a gander at those and find out who is adding value to you tonight. Dr. J?
In order to address the issues of abuse against Black women, it is imperative that we look at the unique barriers faced by African American women on a political, economic, and cultural level. For our regular listeners, those new to House Talk, this month Dr. Pitts is doing just that, using this platform to educate, empower, and liberate women as she remains committed to strengthening families one solution at a time. If you or someone you know is being abused, please call your local authorities or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Again, 1-800-799-7233. Help is available for you. Absolutely, it is. It definitely is. It's also important to understand the unfair stereotypes and destructive misrepresentations of Black women that perpetuate crimes against women of color. Tonight we're going to provide greater understanding with the hope of contributing to you, our listeners, in a way that prompts positive life-transforming experiences. Don't forget to take notes, because tonight we're diving into Black women dealing with abuse. We really want to hear from you, and we're encouraging you to join the discussion, ask a question, or share a comment. Call us live at 515-605-9744. Again, that number is 515-605-9744. Please give us a call.
I want to touch on real quick before we dive in. I'm hearing a lot of feedback and background noise. If everybody on the panel could just double check, please, and make sure that any surround sound is me. I'm not sure if it's us or what's going on, but I'm in the studio. I'm getting a lot of echo and feedback for background noise. So we're going to go ahead and jump in because we have a lot of information to cover tonight, and we want to make sure that our listeners get all of it. As a former victim of domestic violence for many years, as well as surviving a sexual assault when I was in undergrad, I look back at how I suffered in silence for a long time, but I very quickly learned that I wasn't alone. Dr. Wilson, what is the scope of the domestic violence problem among Black women in your professional opinion?
Wow. That's a huge question that I'm going to do my very best to unpack. I certainly think that when we think about African American women, we think of women of color in our communities. What we know for sure is that we are one of the demographics that can be often forgotten. And I not only think that we are forgotten at times by humanity, by our communities, but sometimes, quite frankly, we forget about ourselves. And
that's good. Yeah.
let's unpack that a little bit further. I used to be the servant leader for my church's sexual abuse survivors ministry for 10 years. And what I found, it was a wonderful, it was at Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, and it was a wonderful ministry for both men and women who were survivors of sexual abuse. And we also had another ministry that was specifically for DV. What we found is that many of our members of our ministry also were members of the domestic violence ministry, because sometimes sexual abuse and physical abuse and emotional, mental abuse go hand in hand. And the suffering in silence, which you mentioned, Dr. Pitts, is pervasive. What I found for many of our participants is that we carried, and by the way, I am a survivor of sexual abuse, and part of the ministry, which was phenomenal, was that even the facilitators all had their own experiences of being survivors, and our goal was not just to survive, but to thrive. And much of that internal turmoil that many of us experienced had a lot to do with the fact that from the door, many of us were silenced. So there was a common thread or theme, if you will, around not giving ourselves permission to utilize our voices to take care of ourselves. And so we were holding on and to the trauma, holding on to the pain, holding on to the misrepresentation of us. And oftentimes it caused many of us as women in particular, but the group was for men as well, to not own our own power, not own our own real estate, go into places and spaces where we may have had one or many experiences of abuse, and there was a way in which that abuse then showed up in the workplace. It showed up in our church communities. It showed up in our families. It showed up in our spirits, because there was a hole in the middle of our soul that we weren't able to fill it up, often due to the world saying, this abuse defines you. And I'm here to tell you, and the audience here, that we are not the sum and total of our experiences, that our history is meant to inform us, not to define us. But oftentimes, if we are abused, you notice what we say. We say our abuser when we've been abused. So we're sort of owning that this is our abuser, and language is important. So I sort of help myself and others, because as I'm speaking to people, Dr. Pitts knows after going through our Drexel program that we're always looking at the person of the therapist, right? And Dr. Harriet Ponce says the more you do this work, the more you see yourself walk through the door. And so I think about you remember that?
Yes, I did. I just said that to somebody yesterday. Oh my goodness. Go ahead. Oh my goodness.
Yes, it's true. And so we are all wounded healers. And when we're working with others and seeing ourselves in the pain and the silencing and the voicelessness and the homelessness, all of that permeates the atmosphere of our souls and our spirits, and we don't give ourselves permission to even feel, let alone give voice to the trauma that then perpetuates year after year, relationship after relationship, experience after experience. And one of the things that I've said to many people over the years is that we now have to make a decision. It's really a call to action for our own healing.
Yes.
To then move forward with a permission that we are able to speak up, that these experiences of abuse, it happened to us, right? But it did not happen to break us completely. And even our level of brokenness can be used for someone else's healing, because in order to heal, we have to feel, but we can't feel what we don't reveal. And so that silence is deafening, and it becomes pervasive, and it becomes an epidemic. Anytime that you think about a demographic where black women between the ages of 25 and 45, and sometimes even younger, 1 in 5, and now it's changing to 1 in 4, have had some experience of sexual, physical, emotional, or verbal abuse, that is traumatic. It is unacceptable. And so, you know, what we need to also understand, and I'll just kind of stop here and we can, you know, have the dialogue, is that it is okay to ask for help. It is okay. We as black women don't think that it's okay. And so by the time we realize that we're in trouble, we are like, you know, we are in a devastating place at the rock bottom. And we need to model a different reality where before we get to the place where it's just really devastating for us, that we need to reach out and ask for help. And we need to be lifting each other up without shame and blame and criticism and projection, all of those things that hurt us and harm us and that don't help us. So I'm going to stop there because, as y'all can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this. But I want to have the dialogue. This is not a monologue.
But you nailed that thing, and you said almost, this is Dr. Fitz, you said almost verbatim what I said in the countdown post. I started a little over a month ago, the countdown post for the show. I do it live. And, you know, as you taught me when I was in Drexel's program, I shared, you know, a tidbit of my testimony, and I spoke to how the embarrassment and the shame and the humiliation of being a victim of domestic violence for years and years and years contributed to silencing me, combated by the fact that people were judging me, people were criticizing me. How could you be so stupid? You're smarter than that. What were you? I mean, just on and on and on. And what it ended up doing at that place and space in my life was validating an already low opinion that I had of myself. So when it was all said and done, by the time I got to you all, right, I tell people I went into Drexel's program emotionally obese because I was so broken. I was so wounded to the core of my soul. But one of the amazing things about Drexel's program is that you all, I tell people, you took me down to my skeletal remains. But what was so powerful about that program is that program was so instrumental in helping me to reach a level of healing and hope for a better tomorrow that I never even truly imagined was possible. Like you said, I owned the abuse. I owned it. I wore it like a badge of honor, and without realizing, as you said, the power of my words. And it's like, wow. So now in this place and space in my life where I'm no longer being abused and haven't been abused for a very long time now, I look back in retrospect and was like, oh, that's why I stayed in that defeated place, because of all of this stuff that was happening to me and being piled on top of me. And then, you know, when you factor in all of the stuff that happened, you look, my adverse childhood experiences, those good oases that was contributing to, it was just like this muck and miry place that just had me in a place where many of our listeners are. And the hope is that as we continue to peel back the layers and dig even deeper into this discussion, that they're going to receive some healing and some hope and some help tonight that can help them to reach these levels of healing that we finally got to, and are still where I'll speak for myself. I'm still working on it. I haven't arrived yet. I'm just not where I was, right? But please,
well, we're
you
all
know,
work in progress, right?
Yeah. You know, Dr. J, Regina, please chime in.
Well, this is Regina. I was just listening as you were all talking about being able to communicate effectively, you know, before things get too bad. And then I also heard you, you know, speak about the judgment and, you know, the debasement that happened, you know, because people around you know what's going on. They might not be able to, you know, give testimony to every single thing that's happening, but people around us are aware that we are being ostracized, that we're being isolated, that we're being controlled, but they're just as afraid to speak up and speak out because it's not just about being able to tell your story, but there's all these other factors that are there. Where are you going to go? You know, what are some, you know, there are a lot of things that have to be considered. So I just want to get into some conversation about how people can effectively communicate with their families while being able to maintain a healthy relationship with their families, because, you know, the abuse, the misuse of another life happens to everyone around you, not just you. And so how can we do something about that? What can people, you know, what can we do?
Well, I want to say that, you know, when we think about abuse, we know that it is about power and control, right? We understand that the power can be so pervasive that it is around sort of breaking the person's spirit in a way that elevates the actual abuser. And to your question, Regina, about what can we do, we also know that the person who is the victim, they will attempt to leave the abuser. I say the abuser, not their abuser, because I don't speak life into ownership of the person who's abusing the other person. And so I sort of speak that language of that externalizing, you know, Dr. Pitts knows this one, externalize that, don't internalize it, because it's an internalization of the process that even if that abuser is maybe, you know, thousands of miles away, or maybe they've passed on, if we've internalized that oppression, then we carry it with us. And so having a person who may have made a decision that they're going to leave in their head, but physically they can't get there because the person who's been infusing them has told them they'll never amount to anything. No one will want them. Who would want someone who has children, or who would want someone that looks like them? It's an emotional, it's an effort to emotionally bankrupt them. And they will make several attempts, somewhere between 6 to 7 attempts before they actually become successful, because in their head they believe that perhaps there'll be a moment of sanity where this person won't treat me this way. But we know that one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And so eventually that person who is seeking freedom will come to the realization, hopefully, that, okay, this isn't going to change and I need to get help. And in that moment, when they have that moment of sanity, then they have to be strategic, because to leave could mean their very life. So what's interesting is I got a call, and I'm hoping that the young lady, who I will not name, I don't even know her, is on this call. I sent the link to a friend of mine who reached out while I was seeing clients tonight. She doesn't usually call me on a weekday, so I knew something was up. And she said, listen, I've got a friend who's being abused in a 10-year relationship, and I don't know what to do to help her. And I gave her some feedback, and I said, after this call, I'll send her some more context, some resource information, because the best thing that we can do is give the person who's being abused the information with the hopes that at some point they'll be able to harness the courage that's already inside of them to have withstood all of that abuse for whatever length of time. They are strong. They are powerful, but they don't believe it because they need to reset their mindset. So if you give them the resource, then in their head, hopefully they can plan the strategy, the exit strategy that will ultimately save their lives. But it happens over time. It's a process. And once they escape that, they're going to need a whole lot of resources to keep them both safe, and I'll say this very clear, and sane, because it is a mental level of breakthrough to keep them safe and sane. Because Dr. Pitts knows that sometimes what people go through, what black women go through in terms of the trauma, the layers of trauma, it has taken some women out. So the sanity that people need to have in order to not only transition and escape their oppression or the oppressor, but then to stay gone and not to cycle back, that requires additional resources and support.
Right. And on that, Dr. RG, I want to provoke Dr. J's thoughts, because as you were speaking, it brought to mind she's a very huge, what's the word I'm looking for? She's a huge resource in the community where she resides, and she does a tremendous amount of work with victims and survivors. And Dr. J, if you could just speak to some of those resources that are in place, because I'm sure in the community where you reside, there are comparable resources that exist in other communities where our listeners might be. Would you mind touching on that a little bit, just based on the work you've done?
Yes. I've been listening, and this is really awesome due to the fact that everything that you guys have touched on thus far has just really been blessing me, and I know it's blessing our listeners. And I just want to say, as far as resources, in my community, we do have a shelter for women. We have a safe haven place for women. But at the same time, I wanted to really touch on the part of communication. A lot of times, women do not know what we have available. They do not know the resources that are there. And so I think we need to communicate that more, for the women to be able to feel free, even asking, because I know of some women, like you were talking about the shame. The shame is real. They do not want to really tell other people what's going on, as far as in their home.
Right.
And even the women that I've worked with that have been incarcerated, I share with them resources when they come out of the prison system, places that they can go, just not only the shelters, but also faith-based centers where they can go and get restored and get healed and get delivered and get set free. And it's very important because we're looking at it holistically, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I know if it wasn't for myself being in Christ, being in the house of the Lord, I don't know where I would be as far as my sanity, per se. And I know that there's a lot of women that feel that way. Yes, education helped as far as me focusing on school, I love to learn. But at the same time, I believe that my healing and also women who have been abused, their healing, it comes from above. It truly does. But the resources that are available are good. We need those resources because we still have to keep on living. We still have to keep on going regardless of the situation that we came out of, the toxic environment, that we were in. we still need to be able to be there also for other women. I know that you say, why do black women tend to remain silent when they are victims of domestic violence and or abuse? There's a lot of reasons. I mean, for one, they don't want to report, that their men are abusing them. They want to protect them. And then not only that, the system is proportionally, it's not justifiable, it's not fair to the black man. So therefore, women are reluctant to turn their men over to this so-called justice system.
Wow.
Their judge, I heard tonight, said, you're being judged. You're being judged by your family members, your friends. It's like, why don't you stay, or why are you staying? Or, some women stay for 10 years, some women stay 15, some women stay for 20. I've known women who stay for 30 years. And
I know women that have ended up dead.
Absolutely.
Which is the ultimate sacrifice, is it not?
Right. It really is.
I wanted to add a piece about, and I'm wondering what you ladies think about this whole concept of the residual effects of slavery. Because what's different for black women, and in particular African American women, is that we have this unfair projection and shared experience of abuse and trauma that was socially acceptable that was not that long ago, right? So it wasn't hundreds of thousands of years ago. Many of us know a great-grandmother that was probably on the heels of the emancipation, slavery. And I do wonder with regards to the level of silence that we harness, that we are so good at in a not so good way because it doesn't serve us very well, how much of that is related to the fact that this really is our lived and shared experience of being beaten and abused and emotionally, physically, mentally, and sexually. And with regards to our male counterparts, there is a connection because their level of trauma is equally as pervasive with regards to what they had to bear witness to when we as women were raped and brutalized. And if they spoke up, right, we're talking about silence and voicelessness. If they spoke up, that meant death.
Right.
And so with that not being that far from, excuse me?
I said, wasn't that by design? It's like, how do they, when I think about this debate that goes on about whether or not the Willie Lynch letter was, a myth or just a story that somebody made up, I think about how whether it was true or not, there are some real things that are ever present in us as that were stated in that letter. So how better to break a people than to rape us, abuse us, and have your way with us in front of our men, which serves to emasculate him. And then the flip side of it is you tear him to shreds in front of us, which makes us question, well, why didn't you protect me? And how come you weren't, you know what I mean? It's this vicious cycle that was designed, I believe, to tear us apart. So my response to your question, Dr. RG, is I absolutely believe that what we're experiencing as a people, as black women, as people of color, is definitely the residual effects of slavery on purpose.
Yeah. And so the breaking of that, right, because we're here in the U.S., like this is where we're speaking right now as women of color, right? And so how did we get here? We're strong. We're resilient. We have fortitude, right? Otherwise we wouldn't have made it, right? And then 400 years of oppression, and we're still here on purpose, right? So yes, the abuse was on purpose, but the salvation and the victory was on purpose as well.
That's right.
And I think that we sort of, with the oppression and the trauma, sometimes, ladies, I do believe that we forget how strong and resilient we really are. And then when we do realize that we're resilient, right? You know, sometimes it's that we finally give voice to the depression or the anger or the rage, and then we're called the angry black woman, right? Or, you know, we're projected onto as if there's something wrong with us.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
The angry black woman last week. Yes.
Right? That's what we're called. When, quite frankly, here's what I'd like for us to do. You know, make friends with it. Because we actually have a right to experience the anger that God gave us, an emotion, and that rage. It's not to the experience of it. It's what we do with it. And we can harness it for good if we own it, that we have every single right to feel all of those emotions, understand those emotions, work with those emotions, process those emotions, and then use those emotions to turn pain into power that elevates us to the next level and sows life into some other sister or some other brother who is needing to see us as that beacon of light that says, no matter what, my setback is a setup for a comeback. No matter what, my pain is powerful because I'm going to use that story, that test as a testimony, this mess as a message. And I will be victorious. I will not call myself a victim. I am a victor. But it starts with a state of mind of, okay, let's acknowledge that there was some real messed up stuff that happened. And because we experienced that, there was a perpetrator that harmed us, unduly so. We didn't deserve it. But we don't have to be, as I like to call, the secondary perpetrator. We don't have to then do ourselves in after we've been harmed because we don't know how to embrace the healing. It is available to us. We know that. Many of us are believers. We believe, and this is the plug for like clinical work, right? And what you were saying, Dr. J and Dr. Pitts and Regina, that there is help available to us. I do know that in our households we were taught, don't air your dirty laundry in public, and don't tell people your business, and suffer through it, and you'll be okay. What we see it in the movies, right? You know, Color Purple and Women Thou Art Loose. You know, Oprah Winfrey, Girl Not Safe Enough, Family Full of Men's, and all that stuff. But there is healing available to us on multiple levels. And we only get one crack at this. There are no dress rehearsals. We can either sit on the sidelines or get in the game and be healthy so that we can experience what I call our dash, that we're here on purpose. There's birth, there's death. We're believers in the afterlife. But while we're here on earth, there is a purpose for our lives, even in the midst of all of the pain.
Look, folks, you're listening to House Talk with Dr. Lauren D. Pitts. And listeners, we want you to join this discussion. You know, we are already halfway through this show already. This conversation is so rich. We want you to call in and share your comments or ask a question. 515-605-9744. That's 515-605-9744. We are here for you, so please don't let your comment or your question go unheard. Let's talk about it. Regina.
Yes, I'm very excited about this whole series that you're doing this month, and particularly, you know, the fact that there is a movement. There's a mighty movement right now. We have resources in our area as well. Right now, we're doing a lot of groups and meetups and different things just to provide these types of spaces where people can feel safe to talk about anything that is dealing with being a woman, a black woman, a professional woman, rather. And every time we meet up, if there's 10 of us, 6 of us in the room express, that we've been able to say for the first time, and have people to hear us and be non-judgmental and provide support and provide additional resources. So I agree with you, Dr. Wilson. It's time now. We have to rise up, and we have to take a stand. And I think that is exactly what's happening. And I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited to be a part of any and all of this. This is just really awesome.
I wanted to share some stats real quick with our listeners, because I think that it'll send the message to our listeners, ladies, that people that are on listening to us right now, I think that it's important that they understand that they really are not alone. This, as we continue to speak to this issue, it's a local issue, a regional issue, a national issue. It's a global issue, the abuse that women of color are being subjected to. And I want our listeners to know, and I think Dr. Argy touched on it a little bit, but 4 in 10 black women experience physical violence from an intimate partner during their lifetimes. They also experience significantly higher rates of psychological abuse, including everything from name-calling and financial abuse to humiliation, insults, and coercive control. Meanwhile, more than 20% of black women are raped during their lifetimes. It's like, oh my goodness, are you serious right now? And if those stats aren't staggering enough, how about these? A study by the Violence Policy Center found that black women were 2.5 times more likely to be murdered by men than white women. What's more, than 9 out of 10 black women who were murdered knew their killers. Black and indigenous women are murdered at a higher rate than any other race. We don't want that to be any of our listeners. There is help, there is hope, there is healing, there is deliverance. You have 4 amazing women on this show tonight that are living, breathing proof that you can overcome, that you can get out, that there is help and safety and protection for you. You don't have to suffer in silence another day. There are places that you can go that will keep you safe, because at the end of the day, your life is more important than anything else. We want you alive. We want you healthy. We want you whole. And we want you to know, we need you to know that we are here for you. And you do not have to be a statistic another day.
Amen to that. Yes.
Look, I just turned the page. I want to share one more thing, and then I'm gonna let y'all go in and have at it. We got 20 minutes left. Good gracious, time flies. It goes by so fast. But I want to share this last statistic as we sort of head into the down close. The vast majority of homicides of black females were not related to any other felony crime. Most often, these women were killed in the course of an argument. An argument, ladies. An argument. A verbal disagreement. At least half of the murders were a result of domestic violence. And among the black female victims who knew their offenders, 52% were wives, common law wives, ex-wives, or girlfriends. Also, 93% of the homicides were intra-racial. And that reminds me of this, and then I'm going to put it back on the floor for you all. It reminds me of an occasion where my now deceased husband told me that he would kill me and bury me in a hole down by Atlantic City, and nobody would ever find my body. And you know what? He meant it. If somebody tells you they are going to kill you, believe them. Believe them. Believe them. Believe them. Believe them. I'm going to give it back to you all, ladies. Chime in as you see fit.
Wow. That was powerful. I think that the stats that you read, Dr. Pitts, ought to make the hair stand up on the back of our necks.
Yeah.
The stats, when you say 2.5 black women are 2.5 times more likely to be murdered than white women, we need to be enraged about that.
Right.
It is not the emotion. The emotion gives us a call to action.
Right.
And for those, like as MLK said, he said anybody can be great because everybody can serve, right? He also said that if there is a pervasive epidemic in our culture, that we need to all raise up, raise our hands, and stand in solidarity with that marginalized group and say, this is me too. So the call to action is just not black women who are being abused. The call to action is everybody, white women, Asian women, Latino women, men of all cultural backgrounds. We need everyone, because I think that we can all agree that for those women, those 2.5 times more black women that are more likely to be abused domestically, verbally, sexually, financially, emotionally, for those women, we could all agree, here's the common thread, that if it was our daughter, our mother, our sister, our friend, our auntie, which I take my auntie role very seriously since I don't have any children.
Right.
I think we could all agree that if it was that close, if it hit home, we'd raise the roof. We'd speak up. We'd show up. We'd show out. We'd verbalize. We'd elevate our voices. But guess what? That injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Dr. RG, say that again. Say that again. Please say that again so our listeners can hear that loud and clear.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King said. And so these are our babies. These are our babies. We need to look at it from that perspective. And for those of us who have the power, this platform, Dr. Lauren Pitts, that you have created with House Talk, where we can educate ourselves, because none of us knows anything, right? I don't want to be in the room and be the smartest person in the room. I want to be in the room with the thought leaders. I want to be in the room with the people who are innovators, who are thinking about these situations and how it is that we can affect the masses, because our babies are suffering internally.
Yes.
And quite frankly, it's not just the people who are being assaulted, because one of the stats that I didn't hear you say is that these perpetrators, they've bared witness to violence.
Right.
So at some point, those perpetrators were victims as well.
Right.
It came from somewhere. It was birthed somewhere. I got in a fight, with a host one day because I was doing a segment on Chris Brown and Rihanna. And what I said simply was that these two young people both bared witness to violence, and we as a community need to tend to both human beings.
Yes,
the
humanity.
Victimizer and the victim.
Yes.
Because if we don't, they will reoffend.
That's right. And you know, too, Dr. Argy, go ahead, finish your thought. No, go ahead, finish your thought.
I would just say that this is a call to action for us. Internally, Mahatma Gandhi says we must be the change we wish to see in others. If we are spiritually and emotionally and relationally and familially bankrupt, right, then we need to make investments in ourselves so that we can then begin to bless others, because if we see something, we got to say something. We cannot just stand in silence looking the other way as if it doesn't affect us. Because this week I just got back this morning from an overnight flight for my niece's graduation, and I never knew that her mother, her stepmother's mother, was murdered. I never knew that. As I heard that story, I was holding my great niece in my arms, and I was praying that God would protect her from any harm or danger, both as a baby but also as a young woman. When I can't put my hands on her, because with the babies you can put your hands on them, but when they move into young adulthood, you can't watch them 24/7. You don't know who they will hook up with. And we have to pray, because there's a power that's greater than ourselves that is available to us to then watch over our brothers and sisters. And this for us, in this conversation, how I view this is a call to action. This is a call to action for us to do something different, because the stats that Dr. Pitts read should not be our new norm. We need to create a paradigm shift, change our frequency, because that anger and that rage that is very valid has to be harnessed differently. It is valid. We need to feel it. But what do we do with it? I think Regina asked that question. What do we do? What is the next step to harness it to make a difference, so that no other human has to suffer at the hands of another human being simply because they don't know better, or they're just acting out what was done to them? That is no longer an acceptable excuse. We have to teach this in our schools, because our kids are our future. And we're creating, when we choose not to talk about the stuff, right? When we don't take this stuff, Dr. Pitts, to the schools, then we're creating a next generation of abusers. Because what we don't speak will often come to fruition.
And it explodes. And I wanted to, I'm gonna piggyback on that, and then I'm gonna turn it back over to Dr. Dre and Dr. J, Dr. Dre, sorry, Dr. J, to touch on addressing this abuse. But one of the things that you said that is so powerful, Dr. Argy, when you talked about we have to look at the victim and the abuser, people have such a hard time doing that. I actually had people get mad at me and felt like I was making excuses for the abuser in the abusive relationships that I was in, because I would say I wasn't excusing their behavior. What I was saying is there's a reason why they're behaving this way, right? And then when I look at everything that I learned from you and the rest of my professors at Drexel, it's like you all emphasized every minute of every day that we were in class the importance of meeting people in a place of common humanity. I remember the very first day of our clinical orientation, and you talked to us about sitting in our ick, and you asked us as a cohort who would be the person that we would have the most difficulty treating. And I remember saying clear as day, Dr. RG, I don't want to work with sex offenders. But you called me on that, and I thank you for holding me accountable for understanding the importance of meeting people in a place of humanity, because I don't have a right to judge or criticize because I don't know what their journey has been. It's not making excuses or allowances for the behavior, listeners. It's saying that abuser has a story, and more than likely a very serious history of abuse and neglect and violation of their own that they were never taught to deal with. And because we as a people don't like to address issues at the root, just like Dr. Archie said, it becomes a multi-generational, what we Christian folk call a bloodline curse that needs to be broken. And in order for us to break it, we have to be willing to stand up and do something. And people aren't willing to do something. We have to stop just talking about it, and we have to take action. And House Talk with Dr. Lauren D. Pitts is part of my taking action to educate, empower, and liberate listeners all over the globe, and to flood them with the information that they need to break free from all of these atrocities that we know as a people. Dr. J, I'm going to give it back to you.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, what I heard tonight is so powerful. Dr. Archie said call of action. We need to we need to act on this thing. Faith without works is dead. She said, when you see something, you have to say something. Okay. I counsel young girls, and I counsel them. We're dealing with anger issues. We're dealing with abuse. A lot of times the feedback that I get is like, I would love for my mother to have been there for me. I would love to have seen my mother not go through her abuse, because, like you said, it's a vicious cycle. It's that bloodline curse that's been passed down. My mother, she went through abuse for 20-something years, and then she decided to leave my father. After 25 years, she said, I had enough. But I witnessed all that abuse all those years. And so, like you said, with that vicious cycle, what these girls are going through, and they're seeing this, and it's like it's the norm, but it's not the norm. It's not okay.
Right.
And then it carries on to the next generation, and then the next generation. So, yes, I thank you, Dr. Pitts, for this forum. I really do. I just thank you that you are putting your voice out there for the listeners to let them know that it's not okay. And we're here for them. That's basically what I have to say. I have more to say, but I can't. I'm not going to get into it tonight. But it's just awesome, what I've heard thus far.
So let's talk about addressing abuse for African American women and how critical it is to address those systems. You want to go ahead and finish that out, Dr. J?
Yes.
And then I'll close up. We are
addressing abuse for
9:53.
Yes, for African American women is very critical. Addressing the systems of sexism and racism within our society. With all this information we've shared tonight, you may be asking, what can you do to help yourself or a loved one? Well, we're glad you asked. Here are keys for your key ring that can contribute to you getting the help you need. Yes, ladies, you want to chime in on that?
Sure.
How do you help yourself or your loved ones?
How do you help yourself or your loved one? So, I always say, Dr. J and Regina and Dr. Pitts, that, giving people the information, sometimes people, again, we know that women will think about it and they will not make that move, concisely until 4, 5, 6, 7 times later. So giving them the information initially and having them hold on to it for that moment of opportunity where they can strategize to exit. I think that's really key. I'm also, of course, a proponent of therapy. If you can't pay or don't have insurance for a a therapist. There's places that you can go, like Drexel has a clinic that you can pretty much pay $1 for therapy, or go to your faith-based organizations, maybe get spiritual counseling or spiritual advising. That could begin the process for you. And, we have the internet these days, so being able to begin the process of healing internally with looking within and thinking through how it is that you will move into your greatness. And if you can't do it for yourself, the last thing I will say is that you can't do it for yourself if you have children. Do it for your children.
Yes.
Do it for your children.
Yes.
Boys, girls, they are watching us. They are a sponge, and more is caught than is taught. So even if you never say a word to them, they're taking it all in. And it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect. What it means is that you have to be transparent. Let them know, I was in a bad situation, but I'm working on getting myself to a healthier place.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And all of us on the line right now, I believe, are available. Like I know I'm on Facebook, Regina Williams. I'm connected with also Renewed Minds, and that's Renewed Minds spelled out. And we provide, like I said, we provide a platform and also a weekly group if you're in the South Jersey area. I'd also like to just reiterate the National Domestic Violence Hotline number that, you can call, which is 1-800-799-7233. And if any of you other ladies would like to put your social media outlets, out to our listeners right now, that way if they're not comfortable saying anything to anybody else, maybe they'll hit you up in your inbox or give you, meet you there. But just to be, like you said, it is a call to action, and I think we have to put ourselves out there. I'm even willing, my cell phone number, if you need to call, I can, I am available. My number is 856-418-4963. And again, I'm Regina Williams, and connected with Renewed Minds, and we're all about providing platforms for individuals, women, black women. It's our time. You have to say something. Asking for help is a sign of strength.
Yes.
That's all I have right now.
Amen.
Absolutely.
For those of you, in terms of the social media, and thank you, Regina, for reminding me of that. For those that may want to step onto my platform that I do with Faith Inc. We do a Dr. R.G. Courageous Conversations Connect series every Monday and Wednesday. Mindful Mondays is at 7:30 p.m. You can go to the Ask Dr. R.G. Facebook page or Dr. R.G. Facebook page, and then WIOW, Work It Out Wednesdays, is live as well. And then I bring you content, just, positive, like Thoughtful Thursdays, Freedom Fridays, Testimonial Tuesdays, things like that throughout the week. And if people are interested in therapy and they're in the Philadelphia area, I'm in the Winfield area, 53-98 Winfield Avenue. The practice is Faith Inc. It stands for Family and Individual Therapeutic Healing. And then we do also workshops and seminars and retreats under the auspices of Connections Matter, LLC. And then, if you need to reach me by phone or email, it's 215-789-6999 or Dr. RG at connectionsmatterllc.com. So, hopefully that's helpful. This has been, Dr. Pitts.
Yes. So, goodness gracious. Look, I'm transparent. I'm sitting here perspiring. I am soaking wet. Oh my goodness. Goodness gracious. I just want to add these final thoughts, and I'll post the keys to the key ring. They're going to be lengthy tonight, folks, so just look for them on our social media platforms. Dr. Lauren D. Pitts, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. What else am I on? Instagram. I didn't think about it. My website is drlaurendpitts.com. You can also reach me at 302-414-9238. That's 302-414-9238. You can email me at info@drlaurendpitts.com. And I want to give you these final things in these last couple of minutes. I really think there are some things that need to change, and you all alluded to it. The black community needs the pastors and other men in their churches to stand up against domestic violence. These need to not only communicate that, abuse is an unthinkable act, but also be willing to come alongside any woman in their community who's experienced an abuse. We've got to take a strong stand against violence in order to reduce the number of women that are being abused in our communities. The other thing is providing additional training for police, for the police force. They need to understand all the unique challenges that black women face from reporting domestic abuse. I remember, cops coming to my house and being kind of stank with me because their attitude and mindset was, well, you're just going to take me back anyway. And I actually had officers say that to me, without fully understanding, what I was going through. The way in which black women are viewed and treated by domestic violence advocates and shelters is another area that needs to be improved. It's important that these social service groups understand the unique challenges that we as black women face, including our fear of being judged harshly by our families, our communities, and the fear that comes into play that hinders our willingness to report. So here's the final thought, folks. On the global front, perhaps the most important issue for the international community, for our international audience, is empowering the voices of women. It's paramount. Right now, women and young girls everywhere face an immense range of challenges, from the inability to access food, education, and employment to the threat of gender-based violence. Their perspectives and experiences must help shape our collective future. If we want to forge the best solutions for expanding peace and security moving forward and keeping we as women safe, then we need to give smart, dynamic, and strong women a seat at the decision-making table, both here at home and around the world. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who was alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Women, we have to do a better job at helping each other and working together to achieve the results we want and to keep each other safe. We have to come together on a much higher level and unify. Listeners, I want to wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day. I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. And don't forget to join us next week as we shine light on black women and interpersonal relationships and communication. Dr. Wilson, Regina, Dr. J, oh my God, thank you for your contribution tonight. I love you each so very, very much, and I thank you for being as amazing as you are, and for all the value that each of you have added to my life all these years. Good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to House Talk. See you next week.